All right, so you want to own a snooker business. You picture it already. The low rectangular lamps hanging over green baize, pooling light onto a table, while the rest of the room falls away into darkness. The click of the balls, the quiet. Regulars who've been coming in every Tuesday for 15 years. A bar in the corner. A junior with real talent practicing alone until closing time. And behind it all, the numbers that seem so simple you could work them out on the back of a napkin. A room, some tables, an hourly rate, and people who never stop wanting to play. You've watched the World Championship. You've seen the crowds, the sponsors, the money flooding into this sport. And the thought settles in. Snooker is booming, so surely owning a piece of it is one of the smartest, safest little businesses a person could buy. Here's what that feeling leaves out. The most recognizable snooker brand in Britain, known as Riley's, once ran 165 venues across the country. Today it runs 15. That is not a decline, it's a collapse. And it happened during the exact same years the professional game got richer than it has ever been in its history. Because snooker isn't one business. It's two. And they are moving in violently opposite directions. Let me show you what I mean, because this is the split that decides everything. At the top of this sport, the money is extraordinary, and it is still climbing. When Matchroom Sport took control of the World Snooker Tour back in 2010, total prize money was £3.5 million. Today it stands at around 14 million. The calendar went from 8 main tour events to more than 20. Global viewership is estimated at 500 million people. By any measure you choose, professional snooker is in a golden era. And now here is the other number, the one that should stop you cold. Between 2005 and 2014, the number of people in Britain over the age of 16 playing snooker at least once a week fell from 112,000 to just under 48,000. A fall of more than 57% in under a decade. Read those two facts together. Record money at the top. More than half the players gone at the bottom. That is not a sport in trouble, and it's not a sport in a boom. It's a sport that has split in half, and the half you'd be buying into is the half that's dying. So before you make a single pound, you have to solve the spatial paradox. A single snooker table isn't just 12 feet long. With cue clearance, it consumes roughly 350 square feet. To put that in perspective, a single snooker table takes up the exact same floor space as 3 pool tables, but generates the revenue of a single hourly table rate. You are paying warehouse rent for retail-level income. Now, hear how the chairman of the sport's own governing body describes that problem. Jason Ferguson of the WPBSA told the BBC, "You need large buildings, you need huge amounts of space to get around tables, and there's a limited amount of money you can charge for use of a snooker table." Sit with that for a moment. The man in charge of the sport is telling you that the product has a hard ceiling on what it can earn per square foot, and a hard floor on how many square feet it needs. That gap is not a management problem you can fix with better marketing. It is arithmetic, and it is working against you from the day you signed the lease. And if you thought that was bad, it gets considerably worse, because that enormous floor plate you need has become one of the most contested and expensive things in any British town centre. Ferguson described exactly how this plays out. A planning application goes in for flats, apartments, whatever else, and the snooker club's leases get terminated. So picture your position. You are running a business that requires a huge amount of prime urban floor space, generating a modest hourly rate from each table, sitting on a lease in a property market where a developer can look at your building and see apartments worth vastly more than your rent. You are not just fighting other leisure businesses, you are fighting the entire logic of urban property development. Every single year, some snooker club somewhere in Britain loses that fight, not because it was badly run, but simply because the land underneath it became worth more as flats. So let's dive into the building, because there are 2 more costs hiding in here that most people have never even heard of, and together they gutted this industry. The first one arrived in 2007, the smoking ban. Whatever you think of the policy itself, the commercial effect on snooker clubs was severe. These venues traded on a specific atmosphere. Long sessions, social drinking, men sitting around a table for hours. Take smoking out of that room, and a meaningful part of the clientele simply stopped staying as long, or stopped coming at all. The second one is stranger, and almost nobody outside the industry knows about it. For decades, snooker clubs quietly subsidized themselves with gaming machines, the fruit machines in the corner. Then government legislation restricted the size of the jackpots those machines could pay out. Suddenly, clubs couldn't compete with bookmakers and casinos, offering far bigger prizes. An income stream that had been silently holding up club profit and loss sheets across the country was cut off almost overnight. Think about what that means. A huge slice of the money keeping snooker clubs alive was never coming from snooker at all. It was coming from the machines by the door. And when that went, the real economics of the table were finally exposed, and they were brutal. And on top of all of that sits the thing that should worry you most. The people who fill those tables are disappearing for reasons that have nothing to do with you. The working men's clubs, which for generations were the bedrock of local snooker leagues, have been closing steadily for years. That matters more than it sounds, because leagues are what turn a casual player into a weekly customer. No league, no fixture, no reason to book a table every Thursday night. At the same time, attracting young people is a brutal uphill battle. Snooker demands a 2-hour block of deep, uninterrupted focus in a specific physical location. Meanwhile, their competitors for leisure time offer instant dopamine hits for free, right in their pocket, with zero commute and zero dress code. So your fixed costs are enormous, your revenue per table is capped, your landlord wants to build flats, your machine income is gone, your leagues are dissolving, and your future customers are somewhere else entirely. This is the moment where most people finally understand what they'd actually be buying. And if you want to know exactly how that ends, you don't need a theory, because it already happened in public to the biggest operator in the country. Look at Riley's, the biggest name in the game. Over a decade, they didn't just struggle, they went into administration 3 separate times. They lost over 150 clubs and hundreds of jobs. They had the brand, the scale, and the loyal members, but the math still crushed them. From 165 venues at its peak, down to 15 today. If the industry giant couldn't survive the arithmetic, what makes you think your single venue will? And here's the part that should really make you pause. Every single one of those collapses happened, while the professional game above it was growing richer by the year. So where did all that money actually go? Because it certainly went somewhere, and this is where the whole business flips inside out. Look at where snooker's biggest prize funds now sit. The World Championship leads at nearly £2.4 million, but right behind it is the Saudi Arabia Snooker Masters at over £2.3 million. Then look at China. The Xi'an Grand Prix, the International Championship in Nanjing, the World Open, the Wuhan Open, a dense cluster of enormous, well-funded tournaments, staged in venues built at a scale British arenas simply cannot match, funded by broadcast value and sponsorship from markets on the other side of the world. The center of gravity in this sport has physically moved. And that is the thing nobody tells you when they say snooker is booming. It is booming, as a global television product, funded increasingly by Asia and the Gulf. But almost none of that money touches the room with the tables in it. Broadcast rights don't pay your rent. Sponsorship deals in Riyadh don't fill your Tuesday afternoon slots. The boom is real, and it is happening somewhere you cannot reach from behind the counter of a snooker hall in Bolton. And once you see that, you understand why the clubs that survive have done something quietly remarkable. They've stopped being snooker clubs. Look at what's actually happening across the country. Many venues have replaced some or all of their snooker tables with pool tables, because pool is more accessible, takes a fraction of the floor space, and turns over customers far faster. Others have ripped out the snooker tables entirely and installed darts lanes or bowling alleys. Some have converted the snooker rooms into poker clubs. The new independents that are working are succeeding precisely because they diversified. That is the real lesson buried in this industry. The survivors didn't find a way to make snooker profitable. They found a way to make a venue profitable and kept some snooker in it. The table is no longer the business. The room is the business, and the table is just one of the things you put in the room. So can you make money owning a snooker business? Yes, but almost certainly not in the way the fantasy promised. You make it by understanding that you are running a leisure venue with an unusually demanding space requirement, and that every square foot has to earn. You make it with the bar, the food, the darts, the pool, the private hire, and the coaching programs. You make it by treating utilization as the only number that truly matters, because a table sitting empty on a Wednesday morning costs you exactly the same rent as a table in use on a Saturday night. The romance of snooker is real, the silence before a long pot, the discipline, the community. But the economics are a cold, unforgiving spreadsheet. You aren't buying a share of a global broadcast boom. You're buying a space-hungry, rent-exposed leisure venue. The tables are the romance. The room is the business. The rent is the enemy. Master that arithmetic, and you can build a venue that serves your town for decades. Ignore it, and you'll just be another name on a long list of people who love the game enough to watch the lights go off, one table at a time.